Hi everyone and welcome back to SwitchUp. Now as promised, Glen and I will be featuring in more videos together because quite frankly Glen, it's just more enjoyable, isn't it?
Yeah, it's always nice to have a chat as opposed to just make a video talking to yourself effectively. So yeah, we do enjoy making these.
Definitely, and today we're going to be redoing, or I should say doing the next one, of our AAA to Shame series. So this is 10 games that in our opinion put AAA titles, or some of them at least, to shame.
Absolutely, yeah. So we've got some obvious ones on here, I'm sure, but some that you may not have heard of as well. So, which 10 games make our list? Well, let's find out.
Brilliant. So first up then, Glen, one of my favourites. I know I keep banging on about it and I even purchased it for you, I think, for Christmas. It's Hollow Knight.
You did, yeah. Yeah, so Hollow Knight, I haven't played it yet, so I can't say a huge amount about this one. But in terms of the title of the video, a game that puts AAA games to shame, it's a no-brainer, isn't it, really?
It absolutely is, and I feel like I've bought you socks for Christmas at this rate, like...
No, it's nothing to do with that. It's one of those games, from what I've heard, that I want to be able to sit down and play through properly. I don't want to pick it up, play half an hour and then get distracted by stuff, so it's just finding the right moment, that's all.
Yeah, everyone in the comments, keep your eye out for that Battling the Backlog episode that has Hollow Knight in it. I should be a happy man.
Right. Exactly right.
So Hollow Knight, as I'm sure you all know, is kind of the pinnacle really of Metroidvania games that we've got on Switch. It's got very challenging combat. Combat in many ways it's a little bit Souls-like. I'm not going to compare it to Dark Souls, don't worry, but it is challenging. There are some brutal boss fights in here. What is interesting and good about this game is, although everyone says it's really, really difficult, and there are some more challenging areas like the arena, my goodness, that was a joke. But it's actually not too bad. Like, you know, you can actually finish this game in about 25 hours. But there's enough content to play for 100 hours, if that makes sense.
Yeah, what's interesting for me with this one, from an outsider looking in, if you like, is that when I was growing up, I mean, you know, the term Metroidvania didn't really exist then, you know, but the first one I did play, probably, ironically, was Super Metroid. But back then, Metroidvanias were, you know, 6 to 8 hours long. And it's probably games like Hollow Knight that have, you know, pushed the envelope, and they've become these huge explorative extravaganzas, really, haven't they?
They have, and I absolutely love that language, by the way.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, no, they have. That's exactly right, and it's not always necessary. You know, some games do it brilliantly, like this, but then other games like Metroid Dread, you know, it's nice and concise, isn't it?
Yes, and I do think there is a place for both types, to be honest. You know, some people will say, oh, a good example, Metroid Dread, you know, it's nowhere near as long as Hollow Knight, etc, for the price. And it's a fair point, you know, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but I do think that both can coexist, and you can have your 25 hours at a minimum, stretching way past that experiences, or you can have those more concise ones too, you know?
Definitely. No, I really must play and finish Metroid Dread. I haven't even got it. So, yeah, I need to get on that. You loved it, didn't you?
Yeah, I did, but you'd need to have that mindset of, it's not Hollow Knight. It's not. You're not having 25 hours worth. You know, it's gonna take you 8 to 10, maybe 12 hours. So as long as you're on board with that, then you'll have a good time.
Sounds pretty damn delightful at the moment, honestly. All right, so that takes us on to the second one, which is what?
Well, the second one, another obvious one, I suppose, is Stardew Valley. Now, I'm a big fan of farm life games, the farm life genre, stretching back, I suppose, I've mentioned it in videos before, to Harvest Moon, as it was then, Friends of Mineral Town. Now, of course, that's had a remake on the Switch, and it's a game I very much enjoy, but in between that, at some point, Stardew Valley came along, and again, kind of just changed the landscape of what was expected of indies in terms of games like this, and kind of made these big companies sit up a bit, really, and realise that, you know, don't rest on your laurels, because there's people out there that will make a fantastic game.
Exactly right. I mean, it was what was this guy called, Eric, was it, that made this one? Eric Barone or something. But what you find with these as well, which it does make me a little bit cynical. I'm happy for the people, but they very often get bought out, don't they?
Yeah.
So, you know, like Notch is the prime example with Minecraft. He's got this multi-million pound thing that he's created himself, and then Microsoft go and buy it.
Yeah,
I think Concerned Ape, the developer of this one, Eric, I think he's still in control of it.
Right.
But it's exactly like you say. It's something that it's not world changing in terms of its design, is it? It's just everything's done really well.
Yeah, it's exactly that. It what it did do, I mean, it kind of tied it all together in a way that I'd never seen before in terms of the farm life genre. Generally, you'd have your very standard, your granddad's passed away, here's the keys to his farm, crack on. And then you kind of went about it. And don't get me wrong, there were story elements and you could have a family and whatnot. But this game fleshed out that story side of proceedings. And it wraps it up in that lovely retro pixel art style that, you know, I know people do tire of pixel art these days, but there was just something so incredibly wholesome about the look of this game. You know, it got its colour palette spot on for me. You know, the town looked welcoming. It nailed the aesthetic it was going for. Yeah,
I think, do you know what we say it all the time with pixel art, but the visual style here, everything's really clear, isn't it? You know, does that make sense? Like, there's a good contrast between the things that are important and the things that aren't. It's just a really clear pixel style.
Yeah, it's lovely and crisp, and it is, for me at least, as I mentioned a minute ago, it's mainly down to that colour palette. You know, they get the autumnal colours right. You have that strong sense of summertime when it rolls around. Winter, you know, that's such a big part of farm life games for me, as silly as it might sound. And it's got nothing to do with gameplay, but just getting those colours, that warmth or the cold right as the seasons roll on is so important, and it's lovely in this game.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a bit disappointed they didn't keep the original name. Do you know what it was originally called?
No, go on.
Sprout Valley.
Sprout Valley. Of all the vegetables. Oh no.
Maybe it was either that or Banana Canyon.
They should have called it that disgusting vegetable on your plate at Christmas that no one eats Valley, shouldn't they? That would have done.
That has more of a ring to it, to be fair.
It does really, doesn't it? I'm going to patent that.
Nice one. All right, Sprout Valley. Next up then, we have the Ori Games. Have you played these?
I've played about an hour of the first one, which is Blind Forest, am I right in saying?
Yeah, correct, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I loved what I played of it, but unfortunately it suffered from exactly what I just said about Hollow Knight, in that I couldn't commit the time to it and I had to move on. So that's kind of what I was mentioning just now about waiting, you know?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of that, what we were talking about before, these are shorter than things like Hollow Knight. You know, there's I think it's Moon Studios, is that right? Maybe, I don't know. I'm terrible with names, but they specifically wanted them to be quite concise, I guess you could call it, in terms of their design. Interestingly, the second one had this weird kind of like speedrunning online racing mechanic. So there'll be certain sections where there'd be like a leaderboard and you racing against other people online. That's quite cool, isn't it?
That's very unique for this genre, to be fair, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's what. I think that's where you can see there's still room for new ideas in these genres.
Yeah, for sure. I do love the look of these two games. It's just got that magical quality to it, hasn't it? Definitely.
Are you a Ghibli or a Ghibli?
Well, from what I've heard, it's kind of pronounced somewhere in between. So I'm going to go with that.
A good answer. Definitely. Yeah, the Switch versions of these were quite surprising on a technical level. They just look incredible and they perform really, really well. I think at the time they kind of matched the highest score I'd ever given out, I believe.
I remember it was up there for sure. Yeah, I can't remember exactly what it got. But what I love about, or not love about, but what interests me about the conversation on how difficult it is for something to run on the Switch is that there's a lot, I believe, that goes on in games like this that is almost unnoticed on a technical level. You know, like things like the lighting. That it's very easy to overlook when you're critiquing a game on its technical merits. Yeah. Which actually is I would say, you know, quite a difficult feat to achieve and to get right. And I think this game really does get that right.
Absolutely, yeah. But I think another game, I know it's not this one, but one that reminds me of that similarly in terms of just sheer quality. What was the game from Ubisoft, the Rayman game on Switch?
What one did they...
Rayman Legends?
Legends, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it has such brilliant design, doesn't it, in terms of visual?
Yes, it really does.
I believe, this kind of reminds me of that. They took inspiration apparently from The Lion King and the Iron Giant. Can you see that?
Iron Giant, maybe, in terms of kind of that again, that colour palette, a lot of blues, but Lion King not so much, I must say, from what I played anyway.
Yeah, no, I didn't get Lion King vibes. Brilliant. All right, so that is our third game?
That is our third game, yes.
Lovely stuff. What have we got next?
Right, next up then is I don't know, like a monster collecting game, I guess, in the vein of something like Pokemon, called Monster Sanctuary.
I remember this. Dave reviewed this for us, didn't he?
Dave did review this one for us and absolutely loved it. He's a bit of an expert when it comes to all things Pokemon, and he loved this take on that genre. It plays very differently to the Pokemon games. You have a 2D point of view, don't you? You play on a 2D plane, but it's just a very clever way of embracing that genre, a genre that is known for games like Pokemon, but actually goes way past that. There are so many games in this genre, some very, very good ones, it must be said as well. And this, it can punch weight with the best of them, to be fair. Yeah,
I played maybe a 3-hour chunk of this. To get some footage, I think, alongside Dave, just in case he lost his or whatever. But I see that. I think it takes a while to kind of get going. From my playtime, it just, I guess, if you're after a monster hunting game, just having the freedom that every single thing you fight you can capture, you can then evolve, you could rename it. It just let you do all the things that should be standard in any of these, if that makes sense. And it had Metroidvania in it, apparently. It had some Metroidvania elements.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was tied to the monsters.
Yeah, I think it kind of, again, to keep mentioning Pokemon, but in terms of like with Pokemon games where you got the, what were they called? Was it HMs? I can't remember now. Where or TMs, HMs, where you could cut down trees and then go through to an area that was inaccessible before. This kind of did that, but on a 2D plane, where the monsters you then had, their abilities allowed you to move on through the game.
Yes. Okay. That actually sounds very cool. I think I probably need to play a bit more. That takes us on to the next one, then, does it?
Yeah. So next we've got one that I haven't played, Mark. So I'll give you the floor here. It's called Paradise Killer.
Yes, Paradise Killer. So I actually was mentioning this to you the other day because Glen is he's the visual novel aficionado of the two of us, aren't you?
Yeah, I do enjoy my visual novels. I'll be honest, I do kind of pigeonhole myself a little bit with them in that I mainly choose ones with a horror aspect to them, but I do also, having said that, enjoy mystery games. And from what you told me, this is goes down that route, doesn't it?
Definitely, yeah. It's only a small British team, but they created this really interesting visual novel hybrid, which essentially sees you playing as a deity who has to go and solve a murder on a 3D open world.
Oh, okay.
It's really strange, but it's also very cool, very stylish. Yeah. So you kind of start out almost in the godly heavens, overlooking this island, and then drop down to it. And you're walking around interviewing all of the different gods and these deities. It's unusual, but it's very well done.
What's the story like? I don't mean in terms of story beats. You don't have to tell us what happens, but is it well written, or is it does it all come together well?
It does, but you also have to kind of switch your brain into, almost like you do with JRPGs,
right?
Where you have certain things where it's a little bit ludicrous.
Okay, right, yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
So that, in regards to some of the characters and things like that, they're a little bit larger than life.
Right.
But the actual writing, the actual end-to-end narration is excellent, and it's very clever the way that the different people you interview, their stories, etc., tie together.
Okay. Yeah. No, that sounds good.
But sorry, go.
No, sorry, mate. I was just going to say, just while you were saying that, when something triggers in your mind, I played a game quite similar, not necessarily in story, because obviously I haven't played this one, but from what you were saying, called Root Film. I don't know if you've heard of that one.
Yes, I have heard of that, yeah.
Again, that's another one, just while we're talking, that's worth playing for those similar sort of reasons, a mystery story, kind of wacky characters, but very well written, and it all comes together nicely at the end. So that's another one I'll just give a quick shout out to.
Yeah, no, I've heard a lot of good things about Root Film. But yeah, you play as, in this one, just to give you an idea of kind of the strangeness.
Yeah.
You play as the syndicate judge, called Syndicate Detective Lady Love Dies.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's not rolling off the tongue, is it?
Not so much, no. Not like my Stardew Valley game name earlier.
No. That was perfect. But yeah, really good game, really interesting, and a really nice one to add to those, because it often goes on sale, I think, because a lot of people, I mean, you look at it and you're like, is that going to be good?
Yeah, I can see that, yeah.
So, yeah, nice one to add to the wish list. And next up, we have, this is another one that I don't think you've played, Death's Gambit.
Yeah, no, I remember the game because I did our score roundup video for the month that this came out, and I'm pretty sure the reason I remember it is it came out the same month as Metroid Dread and got the same score. Yeah. That's why it's sticking in my mind.
Ah, there you go. Well, it's an interesting one, and it is a bit of a interesting topic of discussion, because it's another one of these games where they made the game and then it kind of got slammed for it, right. And then they went back and completely remade it.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah. So I mean, what was that other one? There was that JRPG, wasn't there, on Switch that got re-released?
It's funny you say that. I was just thinking of that as you were talking, and I was like, I couldn't remember the name. I was like, I hope Mark doesn't reference it because I can't remember what it's called.
It's like Earthfall or something.
Earthlock.
There we go. That. Yeah. Teamwork. Yeah. So it's another one of those where the community kind of went, well, we can see what you want to do, but this ain't it. And they went back to the drawing board. It is a Souls-like Metroidvania, just for anyone that's kind of thinking, well, what is this game? Mm-hmm. But they added in loads of things, like entirely game-changing mechanics, things like a mount that you can ride from one area to the next to improve speed. They added in 10 different levels. They added in tons of new bosses and weapons and things like that. But it was like little mechanical changes that just made the experience more enjoyable. It's quite, I don't know if I call it impressive or surprising, but a small mechanical change in a game can make a massive difference, can't it?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. And it's nice to hear they went back and put the work in to improve it. I mean, that's, fair play.
Yeah, exactly. Because originally their scores, the game was it was scoring around the 60s.
Right.
And then let's see if I can find the Metacritic for the original. So the original, it didn't do too bad actually. Its Metacritic was 71%.
Okay, right.
And then after their changes, it went up to 86.
Oh wow, dear me, that's a huge jump.
It is. I'll tell you what, yeah, it was also ridiculously short, so it kind of just finished, like as if they'd kind of run out of time.
Right.
And then this obviously is what they really intended, so yeah. Fair play to them.
And it's nice because a lot of times, I know I've said this phrase, I'm sure you've said it in a review, where you kind of say, this is, it's fine, but it feels like a precursor to something better in the future. Yeah. But that's normally a new game, another game. Mm-hmm. So the fact they went back and fixed, if you want to call it that, this game is very commendable, isn't it? Absolutely. Yeah, what was that one I literally just reviewed?
Eiyuden Chronicles Rising.
Right.
Now, I know it literally is a prequel.
I was going to say, that is a prequel, yeah.
It literally is a prequel.
Yeah.
But it very much feels like it.
Yeah, no, fair enough, yeah.
Hang on, Walker, that is a prequel. All right, Bulger. All right, what we got next?
Right, next, one of my favourite games on the Switch, actually. This is Shakedown Hawaii. Mm-hmm. Now, this is a top-down, old school classic Grand Theft Auto clone, if you want. I loved the first couple of Grand Theft Auto games as much as I enjoyed 3 when that came out and kind of changed the game, and obviously whatever's come since. For me, I just prefer that top-down view, and this is a great game. Really gets that formula spot on. Talking about aesthetics and visual styles, pixel art we've mentioned earlier, this for me is quite possibly, if not the best, it's definitely up there as one of the best games in terms of its pixel art style on the Switch or on any modern console at the minute, really.
Does it play like it looks? Obviously it looks to me like a GTA original clone.
Yes. Yeah, it's very much that. You know what it used to be like? You start with one person that you go to for missions, and then as you open up the story, you'll get another marker on your map and you can go there for missions instead. There's side quests that you can pursue, like you've got almost like your rampage missions from the old GTA games. Yeah, one thing I will say as a negative towards it, it also has this like property purchasing aspect to it, where you're building your portfolio and buying up the land and buying up the businesses, and it kind of feels a bit tacked on in that you end up with so much money that it almost feels superfluous. But I mean, you know, it is a negative, and it would have been nice to see them do something with that felt a bit more meaningful. But in terms of just the general gameplay, I felt like I was playing a new top-down Grand Theft Auto game for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, basically the original like GTA and things like that, a lot of originals in many different series, there was a simplicity, you know, they kept to a core set of mechanics. It made sense every time. Does this one, you know, is it in that vein, or does it go a bit overcomplicated?
No, it goes in that vein. I mean, the only side that's different is that meant the portfolio building, the business building aspect that I mentioned, and that's the part that feels a bit half-baked. So in terms of just sticking to the classic old-school formula, they got it absolutely fine. I mean, it's a sequel to a game called Retro. I think it's called Retro City Rampage off the top of my head.
Yeah, that's it.
That's the one, isn't it? And that was done in an 8-bit style. And I forget the name of the developer now, I'm afraid. I do apologise, but apparently way back when he actually made the game on original NES hardware, and he kind of changed it as he went along. But I played that game and enjoyed it. I thought it was good. Lots of references to the 80s, you know, pop culture references. For me, this game just takes it on a level. I mean, literally takes it on to the next generation. You know, that was 8-bit. This is kind of 16/32-bit. And it just refines everything, you know?
Definitely. Brian Provinciano.
That's it. I had Brian. I couldn't think of his surname. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Good stuff. All right. Okay, so that then takes us on to... what does it take us on to? A short hike.
Yes, a short hike.
This is an interesting one because it's such a small game. You know, you might think, how can a game that's potentially an hour, 2 hours long put a AAA game to shame?
Yeah.
But it's all about that design. It's what I was just talking about. It's about simplicity of design. And this one, it sets out a very clear premise. Here you are, start at the bottom of a mountain, up you go, and off you go. There's little mini games in there. It's a really... We do need to make that relaxing games list, but there's a really relaxing kind of gliding mechanic where you could just spend time just floating around this mountain. You've got to play this. Is this got a physical?
I don't think so. I remember you put this on your Games of the Year for would have been 2020. I think.
Yeah.
It wasn't last year, but I remember you really singing its praises back then, and it did look lovely. It had quite an interesting art style. It almost looked like I don't know. It was almost like pre-rendered, wasn't it? Or
yeah. It's got that
pre-rendered sprites or.
And it's another one like your Stardews where the colour palette really makes a huge difference.
Yes, yeah, I can see that just from the footage I've seen without playing it.
I think this was where you taught me what anthropomorphic meant, because you play as Claire the anthropomorphic bird.
Right.
So I increased my knowledge back in 2020. There you go.
There you go, see? It's always good.
So there are little mini games in there that you can just join in, but it doesn't really, you know, like there'll be a guy playing volleyball and you can just go and play against him.
Oh, okay.
For no reason other than just to enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
And I think myself and many other reviewers just appreciated the fact that Adam Robinson, the designer, wanted to create something that was actually fun.
Yeah, that's a bit that gets overlooked sometimes these days, isn't it? In the quest for ever realistic looking games.
Exactly.
And you know, that gritty edge. Maybe we forget to have a bit of fun sometimes.
Just have a bit of fun. Ooh,
why not?
And that leaves us with that leaves us with probably two of the greatest games of all time.
Yeah, so this next one, we're going to have to get our excuses in proper early now, otherwise people will turn off the video. Right.
Yeah,
you ready for this?
Okay.
So on our AAA games to shame list, we've got Streets of Rage 4. Now, when it was you that suggested this one, and I said, that's
my fault.
A Sega published. What do you mean AAA? But to be fair, .emu developed and published it apparently, so it can technically make the list, and and we're sticking to it. It's on there. So
let me just add in, right?
Yeah, go on.
So basically, one of the top dogs at .emu approached Sega and said, "Look, you've seen what we've done with the other recent ones. They did Wonder Boy: The Dragon's Trap, and it was hugely well received. And they said, Sega, look, we want you to do that for this." And Sega agreed to it. So this is an in air quotes indie developer. So I'm sticking to it.
No, I mean, to be fair, I'm being a little bit facetious there, because Sega do have a history of doing this. They, of course, I mean, you look at Sonic Mania. I know they did kind of take that over in the end in terms of publishing duties, but that was a fan that basically said, look, this is what I think Sonic should be. And Sega were all over it, weren't they? And they've done it recently with the House of the Dead. Let Forever Entertainment have a go. And it's fine, I suppose. What was the other one Forever did for them? It was the
Flying Panzer Dragon.
Panzer Dragoon, thank you. Again, it was fine, but thankfully, .emu absolutely smashed it with Streets of Rage 4, because it is well up there as one of my favourite games on the Switch. It just gets everything right in terms of that old school beat 'em up feeling. I love beat 'em ups, as you know. I love the art style. I mean, there were people at the time saying they thought the art style looked cheap.
How?
I mean, to each their own, but I can't see it myself. I think it looks amazing. I think it looks absolutely amazing. It's just such a good game, such a good beat 'em up. Delighted to see the Streets of Rage series back and relevant again, and I hope we get another one.
Yeah. So this is interesting actually, because this was the game that made me decide to test a long-running theory in my life. I thought that beat 'em ups, I'll be honest, I thought they were button mashers.
Right.
So growing up, you're playing Simpsons Arcade, I would just be smashing those buttons and then just firing 20p's. And then when we got on this one, I played a few stages and I was like, okay, I'm just button mashing my way through. And then I hit a certain boss or something. And I remember saying to you, like, this is like impossible, this is really difficult. And you're like, well, actually, no, you need to do this. Like, you have to use the depth in the stage, so you go up rather than go across to dodge that move. And then you wait from there. And so there's actually a lot more strategy in these than I thought there was.
There's definitely more depth in terms of the fighting mechanics, and some people potentially give it credit for. There is some skill to it. I mean, of course you can brute force it. It's like shoot 'em ups. I mean, shoot 'em ups, you can 1000% brute force. Of course you can. But then when you finish the game and you get the end credits and your score is like 75 and the fella at the top's got 47 million, that's the difference, isn't it,
That is the difference. I'm just thinking of my score.
I'm going to put a couple of honourable mentions in here, just in case there's anyone that just cannot have it, that we've got Streets of Rage 4 on here.
Okay, that's fair.
So The Takeover is another fantastic beat 'em up. Some would say better than Streets of Rage 4. And another one's called Fight and Rage, also a very, very good beat 'em up. So if you're struggling with Streets of Rage 4, then stick one of these in there instead.
Very honourable of you, very honourable. And that is the last game for us then, one which we both absolutely love and adore, and it's The Binding of Isaac. But they've just had the new update, haven't they?
They have, which has added kind of proper co-op, hasn't it, where you're both playing as an actual person and not one of you being a familiar that flies about the screen.
Yes, I totally forgot about that, because we played a little bit, didn't we?
We played a couple of hours, but it was a while ago, to be fair, but it really does. I mean, as much as we played silly amounts of hours of this game in the past, being able to play proper co-op, if you like, it really does make a big difference. Man, sorry, I just totally forgot that it had that. We need to get playing this on Friday.
But yeah, it's a very simple, in some ways, game, but it works brilliantly. You're trying to floor clear, you're working from area to area. Each room you enter, the door's shut. You've got to try and kill everything, try and survive. And it's one that we initially hated. Is that fair to say, Glenn?
Yeah, I remember the Switch had not long come out, and as I'm sure people that watch this channel know, I'm the physical collector of the two of us, and Mark is very much the digital buyer of games, if you like. And this came out quite early on, I seem to remember, and you'd bought it. There was no physical release at the time, apart from, well, there was, sorry, but it was North American exclusive, so I didn't have it. And I remember you messaging me through the day at one point being like, what have I just wasted my money on? This is an absolute pile of rubbish. And then I think you got a bit further and appreciated the mechanics and the kind of obscure, for want of a better word, vague I suppose is a better word, way that the game throws you in, and you know, but you do start to learn it, and you start to, you know, in some people's cases, definitely ours, love it.
Yeah.
And then thankfully they did release a European version, which Nicalis very rarely do. It might be the only one they've ever done, so I picked that up, and yeah, we just got into it big time, didn't we?
Absolutely, yeah. It's really the brainchild of Edmund Macmillan. Is that right? Macmillan, yeah. Yes. Who initially wanted to create a Zelda-inspired roguelike. Now, I'm not sure I can see quite the link there. Maybe like the dungeons or something. The
dungeons, that top-down, yeah, dungeon viewpoint, I guess. But yeah, in terms of the gameplay mechanics, it's very different, isn't it, really? Yeah,
it's one of those, again, there's a few of these where you can play a game for 200 hours and then find a new thing or a new item or a new area.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of times we'd start a new run and you choose your character once you start unlocking characters, and they all have their pros and cons. I think we chose, was it Magdalene, I think,
yeah,
quite a lot of the time, because she has an extra heart point, or you can get a heart point back, which just made it a bit easier. But yeah, the difference between runs, it's just so much fun. You know, you can have a terrible run and die quite quickly, and but you laugh about it. We laughed so many times about how ridiculous some of our runs ended. And other times you just go on this huge run. You know, a combination of getting decent items, but you know, obviously your skill being that bit higher that time round, you playing better, and you can go far into it. But it's just it's such an addictive premise that obviously so many games use now. The roguelite genre has kind of exploded over the last few years, but this one just does it very, very well.
Absolutely. And that is the last of our AAA games, well, indie games that put AAA to shame. And we have another few lists coming up for you guys. Hopefully some nice ones. We're going to go back over our essential games list as well, so keep your eye out for that one. And we've still got our 10% discount, haven't we, Glenn?
Yes, we have until the end of May, so it should be, by the time this goes out, another 10 days or so, give or take. So yeah, please do jump on that if you're looking to get yourself some eShop credit. It obviously saves you a bit, and it does us a favour here on the channel as well, which is very much appreciated. Thank you.
Absolutely. There's a bit of a running joke now that never ends. I mean, I'd like it to never end, quite frankly.
Yeah, I'm sure it will, but while it's there, you know, please do take advantage.
Exactly. All right, brilliant. So, for all things Switch, and a thanks to our patrons, you guys are amazing all the time. Keep it Switch up. Cheers, guys. See ya!